Jason Dilley and Eric Sharp. Hey!
Good morning, Justin.
Good morning. It feels, we're in afternoon now on the East Coast, but I still have some coffee.
But you got your coffee.
In my ZRS mug, that one of my thousands of ZRS mugs that I have.
Oh, I can appreciate that, Justin.
My favorite swag in the industry.
It is good. It is good swag for sure. It is Haircut Friday for me.
It is. or hair wash or hair comb, whatever you choose.
No. You can't wash out the coconut oil. You just got to keep it going. Add layers, my friend. Add layers.
It's also another Friday. It's Mount Everest Day. So your hair is kind of emulating a mountain right there a little bit.
I did it just for the day. Tell me about Mount Everest Day, Justin.
Well, there's not much to say about it. It just commemorates the first time somebody made it to the top of Mount Everest. So I think it happened in I don't want to say what day. I read about it. But I thought that it's a goal, right? And in multifamily, we have a lot of goals.
Edmund Hillary and Sherpa guide.
Yes.
Tenzing Norgay in 1953 without oxygen.
I thought 50. I thought it was 1950s, but I wasn't sure.
Yes.
Thanks for doing the deeper dive there on it. But there's some badges that we can think of in our industry. We have personal ones, we have company ones, but it's just a nice way to think of, hey, we've got mountains to climb, kind of a nice motivational start to our weekend. That's it.
I can appreciate it. Well, speaking of peaks, Entrata is they're IPOing. They're going to list. You could own a piece of a property management software.
Yes, and the ticker they filed under is ENT, which makes perfect sense.
This makes sense for me. I don't know. Let me see when they're going to go. The problem they're based in Utah, but essentially they are. Let me get my notes up here. Their global spend in 2025 was $47 billion, but they're expected to grow 16%.
Yeah.
Through 2034.
Yeah. So big headline there. Congrats to them. Another big headline too. What's another headline we have?
Yeah, Morgan Properties just recently brought on someone outside of our industry, if you will. Devang Patel is leading the charge over there to essentially unleash AI across their 100,000 plus unit properties.
Right. So we should call out again that graphic, if you're just passing over it, they're not turning everything over to AI. There is a human in charge of this initiative to kind of roll AI out across their portfolio.
Yeah, and the CEO of RealPage had some comments about this. He was talking, about multifamily operators needing to ask really bigger questions, right? So how do we help leasing teams respond faster and more consistently? How do we help maintenance be more predictive and coordinated and resident-centered, right? How do we turn all this scattered data into something that we can actually make better decisions on?
Right.
And it's very difficult to do that without adding tons of humans, right, to an organization. And we're not in that era. We're in the era of reducing headcount and optimizing, also increasing token count.
Yeah, I mean, there's a move for all PMS systems, right? Have some version of this and continue to build it out. I think this is great. It's a new role for Morgan, but you're going to see more and more companies having these innovation roles, these AI roles, where they're the ones that are setting the pace. Whereas I think in the past, or more recent past, they've been beholden to their tech stack to really set the pace on it, and then the companies are reacting to it.
So very true. And I think it's quite timely considering the recent merger news from last week with Avalon and Equity.
Mm-hmm.
So they technically, Morgan Properties, I think, was the number 2 holder of properties, but now they're knocked down
a little bit. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And some other news, right? We had
Yeah, we alluded to it in that last graphic there with a puppy dog. Some big news that I think is going to affect, everyone. And I think to me, this news is huge because, this affects small owners, operators, all the way up the chain.
yeah.
And we have a guest to help us sift through the challenging.
Yeah, because it's kind of confusing news too, right? I think that's
Yeah.
part of it. So let's dig in. Let's bring our guest on.
All right.
Guys.
Hey, Judy.
Good to see you.
Good to
Thanks
see
for
you.
Good to see you too.
Thanks for being here, Judy. Do you want to introduce yourself? We like to let our guests kind of share a little bit about when they first hop on.
Sure. Long-time multifamily industry veteran, always on the supplier side and in the ILS space for many, many, many years. And that's probably how most people originally know me. For about the last 9 years, I have had my own consulting practice and work mostly, in fact, you guys were talking about, Morgan and AI. I work mostly with startup prop tech companies. So I could probably talk about that topic for a very, very long time. But for the last 5 years, additionally, one of my clients has been the Michelson Found Animals Foundation, specifically their Pet Inclusive Housing Initiative. So they brought me on board to help them because I do have multifamily expertise. So to not only understand rental housing and rental housing operators and what are their concerns and goals as a business, but to also connect them to owners and operators. They basically come to this topic with a great deal of research and data on everything pets in rental housing and help owners and operators understand that often their pet policies, specifically restrictions, do not make a lot of sense based on the data. So consequently, I know a lot. There's a lot in my brain right now about pets.
Oh yeah.
The data surrounding that. And
so we'll let you break the big news for us. What happened over this past week that's really noteworthy?
Yeah, it is extremely noteworthy. And I think you guys are right. This is really big news for the industry and impacts every level of size of rental housing owner. So HUD, for many, many years, has, of course, had fair housing laws. Within the fair housing laws, they've had laws specifically about reasonable accommodation of assistance animals. Because the government, I know it's a surprise, can often be ambiguous with their policies, HUD also released in 2013 and then again in 2020 guidance documents, specifically around service animals and emotional support animals. And so the last of that guidance in 2020 really clarified that as an assistance animal, an ESA must be allowed on your property, and you may not apply any restrictions to that animal because it is, not considered a pet. It's considered a service animal, and you cannot charge any fees. So the latest and big news is that HUD has decided to remove all of that guidance. So those guidance memos are no more. They add a little bit of color in that they are going to provide some future guidance. We don't have a timeline on what that looks like, and that their hope is to model it very closely with the ADA guidelines. But again, very important to note that the underlying fair housing law has not changed. It still states that housing providers must provide reasonable accommodation for service animals. So in the short term, it's going to be interesting, right? Because in the short term, I think there's just going to be a lot of confusion, right? Different people will be interpreting this different ways. I'm sure a lot of attorneys are looking at this right now. And my hope is that the industry won't just run out and say, okay, we no longer have to allow ESAs, we can charge for these animals. I'm hoping they will really take their time and assess this, particularly because if you think of it just from a purely business standpoint, 2/3 of American households have pets, right? They have animals. And so if the industry starts drawing a really hard line on ESAs, they're essentially shrinking their market pool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quick question. For some of these big companies, right, they do have their legal teams and they have folks, and they're going to probably come up with what you said, some kind of hybrid
Mhm.
mitigated version that's going to accommodate that. But for some smaller players where maybe their resources are less, like what are some of the things they should be looking at as they're trying to move forward and kind of navigate without guidance now that the guidance has been
Yeah.
removed? Like what's any thoughts around that or
Well,
ways they can find information?
it's tough, right? Because we don't all speak legalese. And so even the HUD document that they put out around this can be interpreted a lot of different ways. But I would definitely read that document. There's also an organization, I always have to look because it's a long name, Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund, so DREDF. And they have already put out a position paper on this, interpreting HUD's document and saying, okay, here's what it does mean, here's what it doesn't mean, here's what you need to know. And so it's not written in legalese, so it's really easy to understand. I would really encourage, especially smaller, as you said, smaller companies that don't have a team of attorneys, to read through that document and really understand what it means.
Yeah, I started going through the guidance, the official, guidance here, the U.S. Department of Housing, Urban Development, is reading. They even have like small carve outs for, in most cases it's dogs, right? It's trained dogs. Someone who's blind, for example, needs to have a dog, the seeing eye dog, right? Classic case. But I saw that there's a carve out for like small ponies as well. Which,
actually under the law, under the federal law, just about anything can qualify as a service animal. So that is different from an emotional support animal. Service animals must be trained to provide some sort of assistance to that owner. And there are a lot of laws surrounding what you can and cannot ask about that service animal, right? An ESA does not have to be trained. But then it's a great question, Eric, because not only does the federal government have, some carve outs and stipulations, but then you start getting into state law. And there is quite a bit of state legislation on the books now or pending legislation that gives much stronger protections for not just pets, but also service animals, ESAs. California is an example of that. Colorado has legislation, quite a number of other states. And I fear, if I'm speaking as an operator or an owner, I'm looking at this with a critical eye and saying, okay, I kind of fear that this may actually drive more legislation, right? Because, groups like DREDF and other advocacy groups, Humane Society of America, are going to be speaking up in a very big way. They're going to have a little more ammunition now. You're going to see more legislation proposed that helps to protect people, because at the end of the day, housing does become a huge barrier. Unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think most of this argument, has been that the system's been abused. The ESA animals have been coming in left and right. It's very easy. I just went and, Googled and found Petable, Waggy, CertaPet, all the, 24 hours guaranteed ESA letters, just this real quick way to get by the fees and so on and so forth. And, in reality, it's been this fight ultimately over like fees. At the end of the day, it comes down to, I want to have my dog, my bearded dragon, my pet pony, able to access the property, and I don't want to pay your fees, right? And the challenge for owners and operators is that, they can't discern whether a pet's going to destroy a property or not. They don't, they have to carry the insurance regardless, right, to protect against an issue. We'd rather put the onus on the resident to have the insurance for the animal, but it's just, like you said, the state and local governments, like they're the ones who are ultimately deciding a lot of things. And then when you apply that to insurance and so on and so forth, someone gets bit on the property, should they have had the dog there? Is this really an ESA? It's like, it's such a cluster of challenges. So
It
most
is.
properties either turn a blind eye to it and say, yeah, fine, whatever, take your ESA letter and go with it. Or other properties say, no, we don't accept, we don't accept anything. We try to fight it. Or I know a lot of properties like MAA properties just allow all dogs. They're completely inclusive.
They are completely
But chances are their prices are, a little bit higher than someone next door for that reason.
Yeah, I can't speak to that. I actually have not looked at that, but you just said a whole lot. So I'm going to pick out a couple of issues there. All of which are things that operators and owners think about. So yes, there has absolutely been abuse of the ESA piece. Now, and I don't believe that for most people, this is, that like they're trying to be criminally fraudulent, right? They're just trying to keep their animal with them. But unfortunately, this move on HUD is, I see it as somewhat regressive, very uninformed, and actually somewhat mean-spirited, because basically what you're doing is throwing out the baby with the bathwater. You're saying, yeah, there are bad actors out there, and there are all these cottage industries that have sprung up out of ESA accommodation. So we're just going to throw it all out, right? We're just going to throw out all the guidance. We're going to let you figure it out. We don't think you should have to not charge your fees to ESAs, yada, yada, yada.
Without warning, by the way. I believe what was picked up, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the pet screening team picked this up and some other folks did too. There was something that was picked up from an internal document, and then they eventually HUD just said, yeah, fine.
Right.
We'll go ahead and just publish it and make it live.
Well, and the New York Times published the first article about it last week. John Bradford from Pet Screening has already addressed it in a couple of different videos. And so, speaking of them, like what I will say is the industry has avenues, right? They have avenues to say, nope, bad actor here. Yes, a legitimate ESA accommodation. And so like when I think about this issue from the standpoint of there are people who legitimately need their support animals, I have a dear friend who suffers from PTSD. She would not be able to function without her dog. Think about veterans. This is a huge arena for PTSD. There are tens of thousands of veterans who have emotional support animals. Now this makes it potentially much more difficult for them to find rental housing. And then the fee piece, as you said, I think probably, like a big part of it is, well, it's both really. It's not just fees. It is the breed restrictions, because and weight restrictions. So if you have a large dog, or, I would say probably the average weight restriction right now is about 50 pounds. So if you have a larger dog, a lab, a golden retriever, a poodle, they're over that weight limit. And then you get into the restricted breeds, right? So German Shepherd, Rottweiler, Pit Bull mix.
And with a trained dog cost being approximately $15,000 to $50,000.
Yes.
Right. And those pieces of information come way later in the process. So after you've done you've gone to all these pet friendly communities, then you realize that your golden doodle can't go because they're 15 pounds over the weight limit or whatever. So that's
you're filling out the form, you just paid the fee, and all of a sudden there's a question, what's a dog's weight, blah, blah, blah. You hit submit and then find out, oh, sorry, we can't accept your 75-pound dog.
Exactly. And so I want to speak to two things with that. So you hit on MAA earlier. So they're one of many companies who have now either eased significantly or completely lifted their restrictions. And what the Pet Inclusive Housing Initiative has seen and has produced a few white papers, case studies on this, is that typically what they will see is, their dog census will increase, so more dogs on property. Their retention rate increases significantly. And so when you start thinking about flow through to NOI with lower turnover costs, all of that, it's a significant positive for those companies, for those communities. And I know of companies, luxury companies, I know of companies that are workforce housing who have done this. And again, it increases their renter pool of people that they can rent to. You also were talking about, Justin, that people often don't find this out until late in the process of their search. That's absolutely true. For years, we've done research about this, and it's very, very frustrating for renters.
Right.
Now, with the transparency, piece that is spreading like wildfire through the industry now, which is a really great thing. I think we'll see more and more that on ILSs, on property websites, they're going to be very detailed about their pet policies and all of their pet fees, right? Because yes, you can't be transparent by just saying, check for breed restrictions. Check for weight restrictions.
Right.
Just go ahead and put that on your website. Make it easier for yourselves. Trust me, your site staff do not love having to answer this question late in the process.
Right.
Well, do you have a crystal ball? Could you tell us what is going to happen? What are some of the, maybe my last question here is what do you think will happen? How will this affect operators long term? You mentioned a little bit about the, lawsuits, of course, potentially things like that. But how will this affect our audience?
I wish I had a crystal ball, right? And I think, like I said, initially there'd be a lot of confusion.
You have a crystal vase right behind you, so just go ahead.
I do.
Maybe
One. I do think that the industry will, in large part, be pretty level-headed about this, right? Because listen, they are risk averse. They do not want to be sued. One of the takeaways from this conversation should be you can still be sued, right? This guidance does not take away a renter's ability to sue you if they feel like they have been wronged. And so, I'm hoping that what we see is that calmer heads prevail, that people say, you know what, we don't want to just take away emotional support animals and access to housing for people who really legitimately need this. And let's kind of keep doing what we're doing. But I think a lot will just depend on what ultimately is the guidance that HUD does come out with and when that happens, So I guess I'll leave it at that. And I will just really encourage the industry to, at the end of the day, just have a heart, right? Yes, there are bad actors, but most people are not. And most people want to find a great place to live where they can have their service animal, their ESA, their pet with them.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was very helpful to me, to other folks, and throw that link up there one more time, Eric, of the resource that, in case folks didn't get it earlier, it's part of this. Make sure it's a plain spoken way of like understanding what this means, what this doesn't mean. So, Judy, thanks again for sharing that and all your insight.
I appreciate you having me on. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye.
And right into it, because we're going to go over our typical 30 minutes, which is
No, we're
fine.
not.
That
We're going to
was
crush
great.
it.
No, we got to get it all in.
Dahlia Cogreen this week. She solved everything. She got so frustrated. She put together her own vibe coded version of really managing a portfolio. What does it look like? What
an ROI calculator.
The ROI
agent.
calculator.
Yes. And it was really great. You're seeing more and more folks do this in the owner operator side, any side that has been doing this for years. They're able to use AI. They're able to use technology to create things to make their jobs better. This got a lot of attention. People loved it. People said it should include this and all. Like there was tons of comments about it. Do we have? I know you wanted to demo it a little, or
I'll put a link up here.
All right. So a link is coming, and if you want to access it yourself, go and check it out. It's pretty cool. Grab the ROI calculator.
Oh, geez, now I just made you disappear. That's just terrible.
Oh, yeah, doing too many things at once.
Oh, you just don't know how it's going to look sometimes. Well, yeah, go check out Dahlia's ROI calculator.
Yeah, very cool. And Lisa Trojan always puts out some great content. This particular post, even though there was no visual at all, it was just a story. It felt a lot like a graphic novel because kind of indicating the process, of shopping a, top 15 NMHC management company property, and basically pointing out that there was so little attention to detail, the redundancy,
Yeah.
the tons of steps, the not connected communication. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
the accountability's really just dropped, right? I think a lot of folks are witnessing, and Lisa's picking it out and calling it out. We're witnessing just lack of attention to detail, lack of care. We're trying to do these broad strokes with AI and broad strokes with using technology to help replace things. But in reality, what we've done is we've removed the personalization. We've removed the branding from our properties. And what you're doing is you're really hurting yourself. You're becoming homogenized. Your properties are just like everyone else's. So, if you're getting 8 line free, how does that make you differentiate from anyone else, right? You're shooting out flares as opposed to trying to become a respected brand. And I was shocked to find that this was a top 15 NMHC management company doing this.
Yeah. I wish I could say I was shocked, but I was not shocked.
I am shocked. I am shocked.
Because again, just like these companies are huge. The different regions operate differently, different teams operate differently, different owners. If you're a third party manager, you have different. You might just say, "Oh, I'm tapping this third party manager," and they're just checking boxes. They're not necessarily invested in that collaboration. So, I mean, it shouldn't be the standard. That is shocking, but I do know that stuff happens. So
very true. All right. Well,
some more convos in Multifamily Insiders thread.
Yeah, I don't have a link for this.
It's all right. There's not too much to say. It was all about, the assistant property manager. That role's disappearing. Where is it going? Do we need it anymore? Some say yes, some say no. Eric, what say you?
Yeah, so to me, at the end of the day, it does depend on the size of your property. But ultimately, having the right assistant, first of all, does a couple things. It prepares them for the role of property manager. It's like that step before the step up, right? So maybe you're a community manager, you're learning how to manage the community, you're, engaging residents, right? You're trying to create that, but you need to learn the numbers. You need to learn how to collect rent. You need to learn how to do all more of that number side of things, because ultimately you're rolling up into a regional at that point. Well, if you don't have that step up and in, and you're just getting thrown into a PM role, then what's going to happen? How does that make that transition happen, right? And I think we're just starting to see, the rungs on the ladder increasing, the gaps are increasing. So it's well, how are we going to educate and prepare people for that? That's my big concern with the removal of the assistant property manager role.
Yeah, I mean, there is discussion. We talked about this either last show or the show before, but that typical step up is changing. So, taking your best sales leasing folks and putting them in management roles isn't always the smartest thing, because they're killing it in the leasing. So maybe you want to move them in a more leasing oversight of multiple, they're breaking up the work in a different way. But to your point, if you are taking someone from leasing and bringing them to a management position, there's a gap there that sometimes this step can help fill.
Yeah.
And it's, that's our show today. We have a one little thing to, little moment of wonder here at the end. Oh,
well, yeah.
We're blocking our faces
forget.
again. I forgot about that. What's happening? Why is this up here?
Why? Well, because my camera stopped, apparently. That's good news.
Do we go down here to look? Is that how we do it? Like that?
I think it's up here.
Up here, like this way?
Crane the neck. We put our heads together.
We're going to be apartmentalized, you guys. Palooza, podcast Palooza will be the Tuesday of that week in New Orleans at the Civic Theater. This is put on by the Multifamily Media Network. We will be closing out the show, but it has a lot of great conversations from owners, operators, and some select suppliers.
Awesome. Well, here it is, your moment of wonder.
Another day in paradise. Ever since management rolled out our new AI assistant, Eva, working on site has gotten so much easier. You know, corporate rolled this out 6 months ago, and you know, I'm going to be honest. I was a little skeptical at first. I mean, I'm old school. I like a handshake. I like elongated eye contact. But now, I don't even set an alarm. I just show up, and half my job's already done. Don't tell HR that part.
Dane!
Jesus, you scared me.
I'm sorry. We have 3 tours booked right now.
Amazing. See what I was saying?
No, they booked at the same time. They're triple booked for 8:15.
Okay. Well, Angelo's coming in, so he'll take one.
Angelo was out sick.
Okay, great. Anna, would you like to?
Yeah, I got it.
Still working out the kinks. Hi, welcome to Heatherwood Apartment Homes. Glad you were able to make it in. You're all so timely. Can you remind me which floor plans you were looking at?
Yeah, I was actually looking to speak with Eva. Like, I had been texting with her, and she had a lot of my preferences and things like that. Is she here?
No, she's not. She's sick. Human cold. But how about this?
Human cold indeed. And that was not RPM Living. That was from a previous show. That was produced by the folks at Zuma and available on YouTube. Search it. It's 3 minutes long. There's some great additional stories with that. When AI goes bad, I guess is the title.
Yep. There we go. Well, thank you all so much for joining us, and hope you clutch your animals, take good care of them, and take them for a walk. Take your bearded dragon for a walk.
Yes. Have a great weekend.